Hey, movie maniacs. My name is Sky, and I'm joined by my brother, Dusty. Dusty, have you ever, I don't think we've ever discussed this, did you ever, when we were growing up, ditch a full day of high school?
I want to say, I know I've ditched classes, like a certain
Hmm.
class, like, oh, I don't want to be here, so I'm going to leave. But I don't remember actually ditching the entire day, probably, though. But how about you?
From what I remember, I've done it, I think, three times. Once I stayed at home to intercept a progress report that had a bad grade on it, and I intercepted it. And, I brought up the grade, so mom and dad never knew. The second time was I went to Monterey with Richard. Remember Richard? I went to Hawaii with him back in eighth grade.
Sure do.
The third time was, I think, me, Brad, Ben, maybe Mark, maybe Dave too. We went to Pismo for the day.
No, that's a great
Yeah.
plan. I don't
Yep.
remember you staying home to intercept that. I didn't know about the progress report. That's funny.
Well, I didn't tell anybody, you know.
Did you actually fake being sick? Like, ugh, ugh.
I can't recall the details. I just remember staying home the entire day, just being upstairs in the bedroom. And at one point, Dad came home with Greg, and they got lunch or something. And I was just upstairs being quiet. And then once they left, I could now, make noise once again.
Oh, so they didn't know you were home?
Nope, they didn't. I was just upstairs. I was just upstairs in my bedroom, being nice and quiet, hoping they wouldn't come up. And why would they? I mean, Dad never came upstairs
Yeah,
unless to
their
play
bedroom is
pool,
downstairs.
but they
So
were just a
yeah.
lunch break. Mhm.
Yeah. For me, I think there was a times I went and got donuts or just I don't want to be here. Let's go do something else. Just go hang out. There
Yeah.
was one class where the guy he's smart, but it just seemed like he was just being so lackadaisical, the teacher.
Mm.
And so what we would do, we'd sit in there, he'd take roll, and then we would literally sneak out like 5 minutes later and be gone the
Really?
entire time and not be there. And so I know he's smart. I know he's just like, whatever. The kids, stupid kids.
Yeah.
But he was super cool. Like, we still got a decent grade. Even
Yeah.
we did it at least out of an entire semester. I want to say like 5, 6 times, if not more.
Wow.
Like it was like almost. It might have been more than that because it felt like every day. Let's go. Hey, let's go. Let's go.
That's
And I,
interesting. So
yeah,
he was like the teachers that we see in Ferris Bueller's, right? You see Ben Stein as the first teacher, you see some other old gray-haired dude, and they obviously don't care about teaching. They don't care that their message is being delivered, that their students are learning. They're just up there reciting the same old lesson they've done for years in the past, and they sound super boring. So that's what this teacher was like?
he's not necessarily like that. He just knows, hey, these guys are high school seniors, and I'm just teaching. It was probably something like I want to say like social sciences or something like they don't need to know this. Like it's not that big of a deal as long as they're passing the grades or passing the tests and all that sort of stuff.
Passing the
And
test, yeah.
yeah. So that's why I was like, hey, this guy. I know he's smart. He's super smart, and he wasn't so lackadaisical. He just like I think he's like oh well, they're seniors. Whatever. It's not this is not gonna make them like literally flunk or not flunk. Get fired from every single job. Like they're gonna be fine. This is just be seniors being seniors. He was that type of teacher. Just a really cool,
Gotcha.
like laid back guy.
Hmm. Cool, cool. Going through, high school and even in college, did you have any boring teachers like we saw in this movie?
No, I don't remember any like that. And what was interesting when I was actually reading like all the things that they talk about. You go to IMDb and you could click on all the facts or like the things that you'd want to just read about fun trivia about the movie. And apparently Ben Stein was in a roundabout way just selected by the Hughes. Howard Hughes? Is that no? That's not his name.
No, well, he's Hughes is his last name. You're talking about the director?
Director. Yeah, what was his
John
name?
Hughes.
John Hughes.
John.
Yeah, apparently, like Ben Stein knew Richard Nixon, and then a roundabout way, Richard Nixon suggested to somebody else, and then somebody else, and eventually went to John Hughes, and then found Ben Stein. And he's like, "You're perfect for this," and that was. I think just majority of that, like when he's actually teaching, the voodoo or no something economics, voodoo economic, like that's literally his content. He's literally teaching that because that's what he has done in the past. They didn't write that out. The only thing they wrote out was Bueller. So the rest of it was literally ad libbed. But no, I did not have any teachers like that. How about you?
No, I didn't, thankfully. I mean, at least all the way through high school, every teacher seemed to be really interested in getting the students to learn and pay attention. One teacher, though, my Spanish teacher, she seemed to hate teaching Spanish. Not hate teaching Spanish, but she didn't want to deal with all of us not wanting to learn it. So it was really easy to pass that class because the tests were super simple. The speech tests were really easy. I think she was maybe the only teacher that really didn't care if the students learned or not.
It was probably like, what's the word for library? Oh,
Yeah,
biblioteca. I got it.
exactly.
I got
Yeah,
it. Hey.
that's what it was. 100%. Yeah. But other than that, everyone else, science teachers, math teachers, they really did care that the students would learn, you know.
Oh, that's that. Yes, I agree. Now, going through this movie again, I haven't watched it for a good at least 10, 15 years. Really, really enjoyed it all over again, laughed all over again, caught things I didn't really catch before. You know, I just was like, oh, wow, like I didn't get that, or at least I get it differently now because, you know,
Yeah.
being older now from the last time I watched it, but thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed it. What about you?
Fully enjoyed it as well. And this movie came out in '86, so I guarantee we saw it probably not in theaters, but mom probably rented it, you know, the month that it came out because she was always renting movies and stuff. So '86 means you were only 7 years old when this came out. I was 9 years old, but I guarantee we saw it at the time, and I thoroughly enjoyed it then, and still it's one of my most recommended movies. I mean, if somebody says what movie should I watch from the '80s, I've never seen an '80s movie. Ferris Bueller's got to be near the top of the list for sure.
Man, that's a good answer to that question. Like, what movie should I watch? Obviously, people are going to say like Breakfast Club or, you know, 16 Candles. I don't remember 16 Candles. I don't remember watching that one. But like Breakfast Club is a big one. But those are John Hughes movies too. Like John Hughes was like the epitome of 80s movies. Brilliant, brilliant
80s
director
high
and
schooler
writer.
drama comedies.
My goodness. And apparently this movie, he wrote it in like 6 days, like the whole script. He wrote it really, really
Wow.
quickly. And there's so many other different parts of the, and as we're going through, I remember I almost read through all the trivia because it was fun. Because you're reminiscing, you're thinking of all the fun things that you just saw, or because I was literally watching at the same time. Like, okay, I know I could read a little bit at this moment, so I read a little bit, and then it's just so much fun reminiscing all like the 80s and all that sort of stuff. It was a really, really fun movie to watch. And yeah, this is something that you would absolutely recommend anybody. If they've never seen, or you want them to get to know 80s, this is a great, great movie for it.
For sure, for sure. What about if I asked you, Dusty, I've never seen an '80s action movie. What '80s action should I watch?
The Rambo. No, sorry.
Oh,
Rambo, or for me, it's really Commando. I'd have to say Commando is my movie, but Rambo is one of them too. But Commando is like top notch.
how funny. I have the exact same idea. Commando is it. That was the first one that came to mind. 100%.
When I
Loving
said
that.
Rambo, I was like, wait, that's wrong. No, it's Commando.
Yeah.
It came out Rambo.
Yep.
But yeah, Commando, that's like the epitome. Like literally one guy taking on an entire nation of army, like army nation. And one guy, and not even getting shot one time, maybe one time when the bad guy finally shoots, the main bad guy shoots him.
Yeah. At the very end, it's a classic like '80s movie where the ultimate bad guy is a total like trope, like he's a total caricature, you know. In that, how can that guy fight against Arnold? I mean, we'll talk about Commando eventually, but when you look at that bad guy, I can't remember his name, but the big old mustache and he looks kind of fat and flabby. How is he going to take on Commando? Come on.
And one of the coolest names I've ever heard is Matrix. His name is
It is.
Matrix. I'm like, what? I wanted to name our son Matrix, but Melissa said no. I'm like, come on, that's up there with like Magnus or
Yeah.
like, you know, it's a solid name. Like, yo, dude, your name's Matrix. What?
Yeah, and when you're named Matrix, you have to grow into that. You can't be geeky. What is it? The geeky teenager in
Steve
The
Urkel.
Simpsons with that
Or
kind of
Steve-
name, or Steve
yeah.
Urkel. You just can't be. No, you have to grow into a big buff. You have to basically be Dolph Lundgren by the time you're 14 with that name.
Like I thought quickly, and I quickly dismissed it, of naming my son Jeeves. But I knew what his occupation would be, and I said, no, I'm not going to name my kid Jeeves.
No way. Yeah, but you did choose some good names, Elias and Xander.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
Alexander, right?
Alexander. Yeah,
Yeah.
go short for Xander.
Mhm.
But going through watching this movie brought back so many memories of not just like the movie and watching the movie, just being back in the 80s. So it's always fun going through the, but I do have to ask, Do you miss going to the movie theaters now? Right now, literally, we're on lockdown. Everybody knows about the coronavirus, and we don't normally talk about things going on, but the coronavirus is going on. We can't go to movie theaters, which I am bummed. Like, I enjoy going to movie theaters. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Loving the theaters. When there's a good movie out, I always want to go see it in the theater. I don't want to wait till the DVD, especially if it's a sci-fi or a big action thing where you've got to see it on the big screen. But I'm kind of thankful. I mean, we can't go to the theater, so all of the movie companies, of course, are not releasing their movies. So we're going to get them eventually. But I am jonesing to go back, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, yeah. So when you think of this movie, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, what is one scene? Now, it doesn't have to be your favorite scene, but if I say, "Hey, Sky, tell me about Ferris Bueller's Day Off," what's your first thought? Like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind about this movie?
Him singing on the float in the parade. That's always number one. Yeah. What about
Absolutely.
you? Oh,
That's number one. The quick second, like literally right after
the
that.
visual of that.
Yeah, the visual of that.
Mhm.
Right, the second one is Cameron kicking the Ferrari. That
There you
is
go.
like I can't get that out of my brain. Like that is so traumatic when he's
Mhm.
kicking it, and then you're realizing he's gonna get destroyed by his dad. Oh my goodness! So both of those two things are really in my brain, just geared, seared in my brain.
Yeah, 100%. And you just mentioned him kicking the Ferrari. We always talk about our favorite scene in the movie. This movie's full of comedy, full of really cool parts, seeing beautiful, art museums and seeing Chicago and stuff. But that is my favorite scene when he actually learns to step up and take on the fear and he's going to actually confront his dad. We kind of hope so, right? He might change his mind and back down at the last minute, but they kind of play the music at that scene when he says, I'm going to confront my dad and talk to him about this. That he's going to do it and he's changing his life for the better. Like this one day, Ferris's day off, I think turned Cameron around for the better in life.
I like that you bring that up because you brought this up usually in plenty of movies is character arcs and changing in the characters actually changing, and a lot of people around Ferris Bueller changes. He doesn't. He literally doesn't change. He's a still same guy. But a lot of people change. Like his sister literally changes because of him. Well, not just because of him. She had a one track mind, but then meets Charlie Sheen, and then he helps her. Which, in fact, I'll quick trivia. I read he literally stayed up for 48 hours straight, or as best he could for 48 hours straight, to make himself look that disheveled, his eyeballs bulging out, all red, all like that, and he pulled it off. He was fantastic. Love that
Success for sure
success.
there.
But yeah, so everybody around him, Cameron changed, even his girlfriend changed a little. And I wouldn't say you don't really notice it, but it does seem like she grew up just a little bit.
Yeah.
Even though she did feel like she was already a little bit mature, she grew up a little bit. Cameron definitely changed. His sister definitely changed. The principal definitely. I don't know if he's necessarily changed. He's on the path to changing because of all the bad mistakes that he's done, and so
Yes.
the people around him change because of his actions and what he does.
Yeah, he affects everybody around him, and it seems to be in a pretty positive light. And one of the interesting things about this, I never thought about this in all the previous times watching it, but Sloane she's not just his girlfriend. She's like an accomplice. She's a sidekick. She's involved in the prank. She gets on the phone and asks for him at Chez Louis. I mean, it's pretty cool seeing how this time all three of them are working together to pull off this whole day off together. And I just noticed it this time. In all the prior watchings, I just kind of thought, oh, that's his girlfriend right there, and she's tagging along. But no, she's not tagging along. She's a willing participant and an active participant. And I really liked I like the fact, like you said earlier, you noticed some new things. That's a new thing in this one that I noticed.
Yeah, yeah, all three of them. Like you're right. I mean, we could obviously tell when Cameron's on the phone the first time. It's kind of like, oh wow, he's talking to the principal. Oh no, it's Cameron. It's just really really fun to see that. And then you see his girlfriend who is not nervous about calling on the phone or playing a part or whatever. They're like three peas in a pod, and they go really really well together. So it's really fun. Now I do like how Ferris has everything so well planned out and everything works out perfectly. And it's Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like it's everything works out so well every single step of the way. But there's so many things that could have gone wrong that should have, but they didn't. But because we're watching a fun movie, it was thoroughly enjoyable.
I agree with you 100%. I liked every single minute of it. Didn't turn away once, didn't pause the video, didn't get to go to the bathroom, just sat there and watched it and
So
took notes, of course.
is there one quote that when you think of Ferris Bueller's Day Off that comes to your mind? Because there's absolutely one that comes to my mind.
Hmm. Not one particular quote, but I'm interested in yours.
So, two different times Ferris Bueller says this. It's one at the intro when he's talking about everything, and one at the very end. He says, "Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it." That is a brilliant line. And in fact, you probably, I'm not even going to ask you because you probably won't remember, but that's also said in another movie. Do you know which movie it was?
No, I do not.
It is Demon Knight. The Tales from the Crypt. Seriously, the
Yep.
Tales from the Crypt
With Jada
Demon Knight.
Pinkett before she was Jada Pinkett Smith.
Exactly. Really, I actually really enjoy that movie, even though it's about demons and stuff. It's a fun story. Like, it's really, really entertaining. But that quote or that line stuck with my brain. And I think this movie is what caused me, not caused, it brought out the inner rebel in me. Like, that's just how I am. I love everything about it. It's like, man, I would do that. Man, I would do that. Probably, I would think I would. But that quote stuck in my brain. You know, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. As I'm I'm literally 40 years old now. My goodness, 40 years went by so stinking fast. I look back, once you start having kids, actually, once you get out of college, it moves a little faster. In college, it moves kind of slow because you're like, oh, it's college. But when you get done with college, you're looking back and like, wow, that moved pretty quick. But then you get out of college, you start, just living life out of college. That moves quicker. Then you get married, it moves quicker. Then you have kids. Oh my goodness, then it moves so fast. And so because that quote, that statement, that thought stuck in my brain from this movie got me to be a rebel and say, I better live my life the way I want. When I heard it in Demon Knight, I was like, oh, I know that's from Ferris Bueller. That's so awesome. So what do you think about that quote? That life moves pretty fast. You need to stop once in a while and take a look so you don't miss it.
I love it. I completely agree. 100%. Really good life lesson right there. That was one of the ones I wrote down when you asked the question. The quote just didn't come to mind, but yeah, for sure, loving that quote. Now, in Demon Knight, which character said it?
It was. I want to say it's been a while since I've seen it. I just remember it being in it. I want to say it was the devil, like the
demon.
Billy Zane. Billy Zane, yeah.
Oh, Billy Zane, yeah.
Billy Zane, I love that guy. He's up there for me. He's up there with Val Kilmer. Like I think Billy Zane's fantastic. I wish he was in more movies. But I think it was Billy Zane that said it, and it just stuck in my brain too.
Yeah.
So because of the idea of number one, being a rebel, not doing what everybody's telling you to do, which I love that idea. I'm not a lemming. I'm not a sheep. I'm not somebody that just follows the crowd. In fact,
I was at stop at every red light, don't you?
No, I don't.
You don't anymore?
No.
Good.
I learned from you. I was like, shoot, Sky doesn't stop at red lights. Why in the world should I? Well, to help everybody understand, I want Sky to create a video or write a book or something called offensive driving. Instead of defensive driving, it should be offensive driving. So basically, when you're sitting at a red light and there's literally it's like midnight, you're driving home, you look every single direction. Why in the world am I still sitting at this stupid red light? And there's nobody. I don't see anybody. Let me go ahead and go. I do that all the time, especially when I look behind me and I don't see any cops, and I look in front of me and I don't see any cops. I'm like, left or right? Okay, we're good. Turn. Because left or right, they're not going to know that it's not a green light for you. So it's just the people behind you. So all that to say, I don't follow that rule. But okay, so getting back to that thought of stopping and looking around, like life moves really fast. Here's my thought. If anybody listening to this podcast and watching this on YouTube, so everybody, if you want to watch this on YouTube, see Sky and I, me flailing my hands around and us having a lot of good time, you go to the watchandlearnpodcast.com/YouTube. You can see all of our YouTube episodes. So in thinking about that, I decided, you know what? I don't want to work a job for 40 years. See, when you work a job, and here I'm going to go on my successfully unemployed rant. So when you work a job and you go to college, you get a job, you're automatically signed up to a 40-by-3 plan. So 40-by-3 plan is basically you work 40 hours a week and you work that for 40 years. You work that over and over again, 40 hours a week. And then you retire on 40% of the income that you used to make and hope to make a living or hope to still live in it. So that's 40-by-3 plan. And I thought, I don't want to do that. So at 37 years old, actually, you beat me. I think you were 36 when you stopped working and you were on your own. For me, I was 37 years old when I quit my job because I started investing in real estate. So I created a podcast to help other people be rebels like us, not working a job, that just over broke job, working that 9 to 5 just over broke job. I created Successfully Unemployed. So if anybody listening wants to either YouTube or on podcast, I created Successfully Unemployed to show all of us rebels like Ferris Bueller to realize that there's so many other ways to make money than working that 9 to 5 just over broke job. And we need to not follow everybody else. So in that, going along with the idea that life moves really fast if you don't stop and look around. Well, if you're working 40 hours a week for 40 years, you can't, it's really hard to do that. If you don't have a job, it's so much easier to do that. I love being able to stop and look around. So, man, yeah, I just love being able to show so many people with Successful Unemployed podcasts that literally there are hundreds and thousands of ways to make money than working a just over broke job.
For sure there are. I agree with you 100%. You and I have each found a few different ways, and we're being successful at that for sure. I agree. Now, getting back to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I want to say one thing that really stood. You know how we're watching this, we're thinking of life lessons, we're thinking of a prop to take away. My Monday morning quarterback hit me like a ton of bricks as soon as I saw it. The size of that dog door at the Bueller house is the biggest thing ever. Anybody can crawl in or out. I know you got a giant Rottweiler, but come on. No, you should never have that big of a dog door. No human being, not even like a 5 or 6 year old, should be able to fit through your dog door. Terrible choice.
So that's your Monday morning quarterback. That is
yeah.
That's a brilliant one. That's a brilliant one. So I actually did not. I could come up with a Monday morning quarterback because I didn't think of one because there were so many. Now it wasn't Ferris Bueller. Like Ferris Bueller didn't really have many Monday morning quarterbacks because everything works out. It's when they don't work out that's easy to come up with a Monday morning quarterback. For me, really the Monday morning quarterback is have that self-realization of, like Cameron, I'm speaking specifically Cameron, have that self-realization for yourself, be other than destroying the Ferrari, other than destroying, like you can have that self-realization and say, I must take a stand. I'm going to do this. And obviously he's letting out like years and years of frustration, which is rather, it's sad, but I mean, literally that's that you destroyed a car. You're going to have to pay. So with going a couple 100 miles over the speedometer, you're going to say, hey, Dad, I took a car out for a spin. That's going to get you destroyed. So that alone, let alone crashing and destroying the Ferrari. So my opinion, my Monday morning quarterback is don't even kick the car. Actually, no, my Monday morning quarterback, if you're going to kick it. Yeah, you can do that. I literally thought every single time he kicked, I was like, take it out of gear, take off the gas, like literally turn it off, then kick the crap out of it. So that was my Monday morning quarterback is take it off the gas and take it out of gear, then beat the crap out of it.
Gotcha. For sure. I agree with you 100% right there. The second idea I had was everything Dean Rooney did in the movie. Just do the opposite, buddy. You're just screwing up left and right with everything right there. And don't make it a mission to really bust some little kid. I mean, he's just a kid. He's a high schooler. He's going to be out of your hair within the next 2 months or so. You know, this is like supposed to be the end of the school year or whatever. He's going to be gone soon. You don't have to make it your mission to ruin this kid.
So couple things. I can wholeheartedly agree with that. It's so much fun watching him, the principal, go through so much. I mean, that was like, it's cringeworthy. Like, oh no, that's so embarrassing, or that's so bad. Now, a couple of thoughts about this. Now, my wife brought this up, Melissa brought this up, and I wanted to ask you, is Ferris Bueller and his sister, are they twins?
I think so.
Okay. But
that's just my guess.
Because that's the only way for her to still go to school and him to be a senior and them to be at the same place and be a part of all that. Because I was like,
and her to have a car and he just got a computer. If he was the older one, he'd be the one with the car driving her around as necessary. So
it has to be that they're twins or they're in the same age, because if she's a senior, she'll be in college. She wouldn't care. Like, she's gone. So why would she even have this? So that's the one thought. So I think they're twins, or at least that's the only thing that helps the story. Now, along with getting back a little to the Ferrari, what was really, really neat, obviously, when we see that Ferrari get destroyed, like literally get destroyed, like, dude, they actually did that. But what they did was they didn't destroy that Ferrari. They made 3 replicas out of fiberglass. And I can't remember what type of chassis that it was on, but they made 3 replicas of it and destroyed that one. I love the scene. It's of the road, just a big open road, and you can see the skyline. And all of a sudden, you hear like I can't remember what type of music
The
it is.
Superman theme
Superman
song.
theme, and you see it take off the car flying through there. I was like, that is brilliant. That's a brilliant shot. Like and
Yeah.
you see their faces, yeah, as they're. I loved that. That was if I think of the car, my brain thinks of that, not of any, even kicking, all that sort of stuff. I get that, but I go right to they had so much fun driving that for 200 miles around the whole city.
I know, crazy man. And the whole idea that leaving your car in a parking lot, a valet parking lot, you're hoping it's going to be treated nice, but man, these are just regular dudes that are getting paid cheap as possible, right? If it's their lunch break, they're going to have some fun on their lunch break in your car for sure.
He says, "Relax, man. I'm a professional."
Yeah.
Professional what? Yeah, that's right. Professional what?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
a lot of there's so many fun things in the trivia. So why do you think they did not create a part two? Because this was a pretty big, like a big deal movie.
Maybe Matthew Broderick didn't want to do it, or John Hughes didn't want to. That might be the only thing. Did you learn something about it?
What it said, and I think you're absolutely right. Matthew Broderick. It could have been John Hughes because he didn't make another Breakfast Club, or he didn't make, but he did make Home Alone 1, Home Alone 2, Home Alone 3, Beethoven 1, Beethoven 2, Beethoven 3, Beethoven 4, Beethoven 5. Like, so he's done that in the
Wait,
past.
he made all the Beethovens?
Yes, yes. He even made Curly Sue. Well, I mean, so while we're talking, I could pull it up. He's a brilliant storyteller back in the 80s and 90s. But what was interesting was that Matthew Broderick said that it was literally standalone, meaning it was a specific time for a movie for a specific time and a specific time in Ferris Bueller's life. Like you could maybe do college, but then who's college skipping school, or job wise or something like that. But he was like, no, I don't want it. It's such a good movie on its own. To make a sequel is not going to be beneficial. It'll actually make it detrimental, is what he was thinking.
Yeah, makes total sense to me. Unless you could just find the perfect writer to write the perfect story, but this was such a big hit and I don't know what, memorable in everyone's eyes, and everybody loves the movie. To make a sequel really could just detract from the whole I don't know what the word is, just from everyone's experience of the first movie. It's like when you watch Ghostbusters 2 and you just, oh, you love the first one, the second one comes out and it's kind of a letdown. It's that kind of feeling. You don't want to, and you don't want to be a part of letting down the audience like that too.
And there were quite a few different other actors that were considered, like even Tom Cruise was considered for the part, and other people were considered for the part. What was actually really interesting, you remember Weird Science? That was a really, really fun movie. Back 80s movie. Bill Paxton was in that movie. I love Chet. Bill Paxton was fantastic. So he was actually considered or offered the role of the parking lot attendant, the valet. He was literally offered that role, and he turned it down because it was a little too small. But he says he now regrets it because John Hughes never offered him another movie after that. Like it was that one. So he does regret it. But here, I'm really blown away at John Hughes. I'm going to go through a list of not just one he directed, but directed or written, because writing, he's really good at writing. So Trains, Planes, and Automobiles, The Breakfast Club, obviously Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Weird Science, Beethoven, Home Alone 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have another one. Let's see. A bunch of others I don't really recall very well. Flubber, 101 Dalmatians, Miracle on 34th Street. I guess it's a remake. Like I said, Home Alone, Dennis the Menace. Those are the main. Oh, Curly Sue, Dutch, Career Opportunities, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Uncle Buck, Great Outdoors. Yeah, I mean, talk about a writer. Pretty in Pink, he wrote that. I mean, dude is brilliant. Mr. Mom, 16 Candles, National Lampoon's Vacation, the first one. Like I said, Mr. Mom. My goodness, he is such a storyteller. And almost every single one of those that I mentioned in its own right did so well, like are really, really good stories that people want to watch over again. My kids still watch Home Alone. They love watching Home Alone and Beethoven.
Yeah.
They still watch that stuff. So I'm really impressed with John Hughes.
Yeah, so am I. I mean, you reading that list, I didn't realize he was so prolific like that. But yeah, through the 80s and 90s, I mean, the guy knew his stuff, and I guess he passed away at some point, late 90s, I think I heard.
I didn't see that, but it's too bad. But yeah, brilliant mind for telling
Yeah.
stories through movie.
for sure.
So a lot of other
George.
things that I think about going through this entire movie, I think of even just like a Rottweiler. I saw the Rottweiler. I'm like, hey, I have a Rottweiler. I literally have a Rottweiler now, which is so fun. It's like, oh, that looks like Lacey, but much
Mhm.
bigger and much meaner. I wouldn't doubt that they actually did something to help make the dog look more mean, like make his lips go up higher to show his teeth and all that sort of stuff. That
Yeah.
was so much fun. I really, really enjoyed the interplay between Matthew Broderick and oh shoot, what's Cameron? I don't know his name. I could probably look it up. But anyways,
Alan Rick
Alan Rick.
or
What
Ruck.
Ruck? You know what's crazy is Matthew Broderick was 23 years old playing a high schooler, which okay, that's not that far off. Alan Ruck was 29 years old making this movie,
Well,
and
they
what
did it forever in Beverly Hills, you know.
they did. And you know what's funny is Alan Ruck. He said that he actually felt a little somewhat uncomfortable playing a high schooler being 29 years old, but he thought, okay, I'm uncomfortable now playing a high schooler, but I was super uncomfortable as a high schooler. So I'm pretty sure I could do a good job. He's like, maybe things have changed. No, it's probably the same. So I should be okay.
Yeah, he was
Oh,
great, man. I loved him in this role. And every time you see him in a movie after this is like the first time I remember seeing him after this was in Speed, quite a few years later. You just automatically, hey, there's Cameron from Ferris Bueller's. Every time you see him, you think of Ferris Bueller's. Like that's like if you see anybody in Gilligan's Island, you automatically think that's the skipper, that's Gilligan. You know what I mean? Same thing for Alan Ruck, I think.
absolutely. And also Mia Sarah, who played Salone, she was
Hmm.
actually, John Hughes was looking for somebody a little older, a little more mature, and all that sort of stuff. And Jennifer Grey, who played Ferris Bueller's sister,
Genie.
Jeannie. She actually tried. She wanted that part to be the Salone, but John Hughes says no. That's too small of a part for you. You need to be Jeannie, and this will be better for you. Which she was a big part. Salone's a big part, but you also remember Jeannie because she's such a um, loud character, such a big part of the story. Salone's just along the ride. Jeannie has her own story arc, which is really really fun. But
Yeah.
Salone or Mia, she was 18 years old, and they were looking for somebody a little older, a little more mature that could feel more mature. And she went in there and interviewed, or what is it, tried out for the part, and she blew him away and said, "Hey, you're perfect for it. How old are you?" Like, well, I'm 18. And so she was literally 18, but they were looking for like a 25-year-old, and she fit
Hmm.
really well being 18. So she was literally perfect age for it, which was great. But here's what's really interesting. So Jennifer Grey, the sister, Jeannie, and Matthew Broderick actually got engaged. They were actually literally engaged. They were engaged, but here's what actually really happened. I'm now again. I'm reading on IMDb, and you know if you read on the internet, it's absolutely true. So this has to be true. I'm joking, by the way. So Matthew Broderick, it says Matthew Broderick and Jennifer Grey were engaged, and they were driving in Ireland, and they got into a horrible car accident. That's why she looks totally different today, like the plastic surgery and everything. Like if you look at pictures of her now, nothing like what she like looks like a totally different person. But sadly, in the car accident that they were driving, somebody or the other people that were, obviously from Ireland, somebody died. So it was really, really sad. But you look at Jennifer Grey now, she literally doesn't look anything like Dirty Dancing, Jennifer Grey, or this movie, Jennifer Grey, looks totally different, which is, I think, I would say that doesn't help your career when you look totally different than what you did.
And also, actually, right now, speaking of engagement, she's married to Clark Gregg, who plays Agent Coulson in the Avengers movies and Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too.
Interesting. Had no
Hmm.
idea.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. So going through and seeing all the different actors in this movie, you don't see you see a good amount of ones that you remember, and one that I always remember is the principal. What was his name again?
Dean
Uh,
Rooney?
Dean Rooney. Yeah, Dean Rooney. So like he plays the jerk. He does a great job. Just like maybe it's Redheads, but if you think of the guy, I can't remember his name in uh, uh, Die Hard, the anchor in Die Hard, the redhead that was interviewing the kids, and she punches him in the face, and he's like, I'm totally fine with playing the jerk. Like that's just
Yeah.
I know I'm good at playing that, so he's
Hmm.
good at that. This guy also does a fantastic job. Like he is great at being this jerk that you're like, man, I just hope Jeffrey Jones for Ed Rooney. I just hope that he like something bad happens to him, and every single step of the way it happens. But in a lot of movies, he plays the same type of irritating character, and he does a really good job at it.
Yeah, there's something about it. You just see his face on the screen, the way he's acting and talking. You just love to hate him. And so he's always great in movies. Wasn't he the bad guy in Howard the Duck as well?
He was. He and he became an alien, or he was an alien, or something like that. Like, or he had
Hmm.
an alien come down. I can't remember. Howard the Duck. That was
Yeah.
a funny one.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll ever cover that. I don't know how well that holds up as a fun movie to watch, you know? It was
Yeah.
when we were kids. We watched it quite a few times.
Now I don't know if it's going to hold up any water. Like we tried to go back and watch The Rocketeer, and I turned it off like halfway through. I was like, oh man, I can't.
Yeah,
We
I
loved it
suffered
growing
through the
up.
whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
But some movies that we're looking back now, we're like, man, we loved them when we were growing up, but now it's like, yeah, I don't want to
Yeah,
watch it again.
and so Ferris Bueller's is one of those rare ones that totally holds up, totally worth sticking, and, watching again, for sure.
Yeah, that's. Uh, I'm trying to think of other movies that don't hold up water. I think Howard the Duck would definitely not. Like,
Yeah.
just thinking back now, walking through it, I'm just like, I bet that's a horrible movie now.
I bet it is too. Yeah. One thing I loved about this movie was all the fourth wall breaking. It's all Ferris Bueller, Matthew Broderick the whole time. But I just love it when when characters in a movie talks to the audience. It makes the movie feel much more fresh and alive for me. It's like, this guy's talking to me and I'm sharing in his adventure, his story with him. I always appreciate that in movies.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's rather fun because the whole time you're being taken on a story. You're taken like, hey, you're here with me. So that is really, really fun. And you also, Ed Rooney, Jeffrey Jones, he also looks in the camera a couple times and kind of like,
Yeah, he does. You're right.
yeah, you could say like, uh, I, as he was following the arc of Ed Rooney, Jeffrey Jones's character, following that story arc is just that's the cringeworthy. Like you need that cringeworthy, the funny, like, oh, what's gonna happen next in this storyline? And without that, I'm trying to think of the movie without the Ed Rooney. It would not be nearly as fun if it did not have Ed Rooney. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. Most movies need some kind of antagonist, that's battling against, even like unwittingly battling, or I'm sorry, unknowingly battling. Like they don't know that Rooney's doing all this stuff to trying to catch him, but he's kind of planned for it. He set up stuff in his house, the doorbell, the snoring, all that stuff to deal with those problems. So even though he doesn't know Rooney's doing it, it's fun for us as an audience seeing what's happening, thinking that Ferris could get caught. What's going to happen? How is he going to get out of this? Even though he's not present to get out of it, how is he going to get out of it?
I agree. Another thing came to my mind as I was watching the movie, looking at Matthew Broderick's room or Ferris Bueller's room and seeing how you can't see a bit of wall at all. No actual paint on walls because it's covered with other things. So number one, John Hughes tried to recreate his own, like what it looked like in his own bedroom growing up, which is really really fun. My question is, do you let your kids, your boys, like hang up whatever they want all over the entire room and just have at it?
I would if they wanted to, but they never had. You and I growing up, I can't remember about you, but I would often go to comic book stores and I'd buy posters and I would put comic books up on my walls. My boys never have a desire to go buy anything to put up on their walls, so I would let them, but they don't really want to.
I Same here. Like my kids say, "Hey, can we hang this up?" It'd be like a family picture or something. Like, yeah, we can hang it up. And so I wonder if there's ever going to be a
They want to
time where
hang
I'm,
up family pictures.
yeah, yeah, that's my kids. They're fun. That's how they are.
Funny.
So
I mean, for me, it
eventually,
was all Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Spider-Man on the wall.
well, I don't know if we bought it or mom and dad bought it too. That could be it. Like we could have gotten
Mhm.
presents. Like here's a poster or something like that. I don't completely remember how that worked out, but I remember hanging things up all over the place. Like literally all the wall was covered and stuff. I know for me, I'm such a not minimalist. That's not the right word to say. I just don't like clutter and that type of stuff. Like if you look at my room, it's just a couple pictures here and there, but I literally don't have anything else. And I guess
Yeah.
I probably grew out of that because growing up, your room is like your castle. Like that's the one place that you could do whatever you want, not whatever, but like you can make it be your own. And so more than likely when as the kids get older, we're going to let them, put things on the wall. Right now, I just don't want them to get the hammer and be king, king. You made a hole in the drywall. Come on, dude.
Yeah. I gotcha. Well, that's why you just give them a box of thumbtacks. You can't make big holes with thumbtacks.
Yes, you can't. I want to talk about the parade scene because that was a big scene in the movie. Like that's like the climax. It almost seems like is the big climax at the very end with the parade scene. Like this is a culmination of the entire day, and then everything else was downhill from there. One big thought was before we get into the parade scene, they packed in so much in that one day that it was just like I don't know how they got that, even a baseball game. Like they packed in a lot of stuff, which is great. That's why it's his day off. But what do you think about the parade scene? And like, what are your thoughts? Like, how would you get on the float to do that number one and just everything about it?
I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fun. I looked it up online because I was thinking on a school day, a giant parade, tons of kids. What's going on? It's supposedly Von Steuben Day, and they do these parades third Saturday of every September throughout the country and stuff. And this is the one in Chicago, and they just decided to hold it, on a weekday for the movie, of course. So it was a ton of fun, and he's a sweet talker. He's a smart guy. He's got a big smile on his face. He could talk his way onto any float, I think, especially with all those ladies on it. He just this is what I want to do. And they're going to say yes. And maybe they even know, maybe they heard about Ferris and he just says, I'm Ferris Bueller. I'm sick. I'm feeling better. I want to share something with the world. I don't know.
That's a good point. It very well. You had the police, people at the police office, the cops saying, "Hey, tell him we're pulling through for him. Like we're really."
Yep.
He's like the MacGyver of getting people to do things that he wants them to do. Yep. Absolutely. He'll make sure he gets it done.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember reading that too, that this was a parade that they piggybacked up off of, and it worked out really well because I was like, dude, that's a lot of extras. Oh my goodness. But no, it was literally a parade that they had and people showed up. And watching that scene, apparently Matthew Broderick was really scared. Not scared like I'm afraid to do it, just nervous because a lot of dancing, a lot of choreography. You're literally in a parade. You got to do it right. Hopefully one take, maybe two at most. But really, really fun with that parade. And you have you just come off of a couple other things. So the parade was great, but I also want to bring up there's a lull in the movie. Now, it's a somewhat of a good lull because it's so much going on, so many changes, so many this, so many that they go to this museum and you don't see them for maybe at least 30 seconds, maybe a minute, because it shows paintings. And it has this really lull type of music trying to bring the story down. And then you have them kind of, in the pictures. What do you think about that whole scene in the museum? Because it really kind of throws everything off.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I know it does throw off the tempo or it brings things down, like you said, but I just enjoy that part because right after that, you ramp it up with a really big, fun musical outdoor parade scene. So I think it was a nice fitting touch right there. Instead of going high, like everything is high. Action's not the right word, just high tempo the whole time. Bam, bam, excitement. We're doing this. We're doing bringing it down makes a lot of sense, for the tempo of the movie.
I completely agree. And they didn't do it too long. Like it wasn't so overwhelmingly down. They just helped you just to relax just a little bit, just to be kind of like, okay, let me just take it down a notch. And then you have the parade scene. I mean, that was like the culmination of everything. And then it picks it right back up. It gets the emotions. And you think about storytelling, you have people go through emotions as you're going through the story. They themselves, the watchers or readers or listeners or whatever, they go through these emotional moves and these ups and downs, and that's how you get them to really gravitate towards what you or like or enjoy what you're giving them. And so I thought, when I never really thought about storytelling, but as I'm getting older with everything everything I'm doing online, teaching people and all that stuff, how to do rental properties, but have to tell story to get people to get interested and all that sort of stuff. I grabbed onto that for some reason. I was like, oh, wow, like here's a lull in the movie, but it really helps drive home the dancing and the fun in the parade.
Yeah, that's cool. That's something new that you notice. Oftentimes, I don't really notice those kind of like beats in the storytelling. I just I'm sitting there for the ride the whole time and I'm a part of it. But it makes sense. I like the fact that watching it this time, you picked up on that and noticed it. One thing that I noticed this time, I never noticed before, you have during the parade scene, the Donkashane song, right? He sings it. And I didn't realize it earlier in the movie. He's like humming Donkashane in his bedroom. And then later on, what is it? Rooney outside of Ferris's home is saying Donkashane as well. And then you have the Donkashane song during the parade. And at the end, after Jeannie kisses Charlie Sheen,
going
she's
down the
singing
stairs
it as well. Yeah, so you have 4 different times you have the same exact thing. And I don't know if you call that callbacks or coming back to something or bookends or whatever, but I like it when they bring one thing back multiple times throughout movies. And I enjoyed that with this one. The first time I've ever noticed it.
Yes. Because you get it through the movie. The first time you watch it, you'll hear it. But then when as you watch it so many times, you start picking up on different things like that. The nuances that really make the movie really good, and that's a great nuance that makes a movie really good, or this movie really good, is that it carried through the entire thing. And if everybody, like, not to say everybody, many different people were actually either saying that or being a part of it. And it's like, oh, it helps tie everything, puts a nice big bow on everything and said, here you go, and presents it to you. So I wanted to, probably one of the best lines that I love in this movie, outside of life moves pretty fast, because that's great, but it actually comes from Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen's character, it's not like drugs, it's not that one, but when he says, your problem is you, like, whoa, my goodness, like, that's like a left jab, like, just out of nowhere. Your problem's you. She's all, excuse me? Like, wow, absolutely. When you think about allowing somebody else to affect you so much that you get changed because of that, your problem's you. And so give me an idea. Let's say you write a book, and I would say 95% of the population, maybe 90%, we'll give it a little lower grade. 90% of the population love it. They say, man, this is a great book. Or even 80%. We'll give them benefit of the doubt. 80% of the people really love it or enjoy it or don't hate it. But then there's 20% that hate it, or that really don't like it, or whatever. And you get 80% giving you 4 or 5 stars, 20% giving you 1 or 2 stars. Well, it's the same book. It's the same book that everybody's reading. What's changed? It's the person that's changed. The person may be in a different position, different life story, different everything, and they're reading it through a different lens, and they hate it. Well, the only thing that's changed is the person. So going back to what Charlie Sheen said, your problem's you. That's literally the problem, because you're allowing him to change you. So yeah, I think Jeannie needs somebody strong and just straightforward, telling her that, hey, this is the way it is. What do you think?
I agree with you 100%. And that's a really good life lesson. I love that line. And I wrote down actually what Charlie Sheen said. He said, you ought to spend a little more time dealing with yourself, a little less time worrying about what your brother does. And that's totally the way it is, right? Just keep your mind in your own business. What they do, sure, it might affect you in some way, but everything that Ferris is doing has nothing to do with her. The way people respond to Ferris as opposed to her has nothing to do with her. Like, he deserves how he's being treated by everyone. Everyone seems to love him. People don't seem to like you so much. It's probably your own fault, right? And so she needs to, like you said, keep her mind in her own business, or keep her nose out of everybody else's business, I guess you could say. That's one of my life lessons.
Yeah, no, that's great. So let's go into the life lessons. I know you've already brought up a few. Definitely my first one was life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. And which is sad. We only get this one life, this one time. And the most expensive thing you could ever spend is your life, and the culmination of your life is the is time going into your entire life. So the most expensive thing you could spend is your time. If you're going to be working 40 hours a week for 40 years and then retire on 40% of your income, you got if that's okay with you, then hey, that's totally fine. There are plenty of people that's great. For me, I was like, you know what? Life moves pretty fast. I want to be able to stop and look around once in a while.
For sure, for sure. I love that lesson. And my second lesson is you have to learn to say no to stay sane in life. I mean, I'm happy that Cameron couldn't say no to anything that Ferris wanted him to do today, because we got the movie, we got a great story. But seriously, I mean, the guy wants to take your dad's however, $100,000 car, whatever, is out for a drive. No, just say no. Like, this could lead to the biggest hassle ever in your life. And anything you want to do, like, if it doesn't make you happy and if it doesn't make you money, just say no to it, for the most part, right? Sometimes you have to do things, you have to go to, I don't know, whatever. But for the most part, if you can get out of something that you don't want to do, get out of it, say no.
And so part of me was thinking, how in the world did Ferris Bueller get Cameron to go along with getting the car out of the, but I started thinking, okay, as I'm playing out the scene, Ferris Bueller is, Cameron's opening the door and showing, and he's not even thinking Ferris Bueller's going to take the car for a ride. So he didn't even talk about, hey, let's go take your, like, remember, I need you to do me a favor or something like that. That was after the phone call with Ed Rooney and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. I need you to do something for me, to make up for it. And so it probably was something like this. Can we just, I haven't seen your dad's car in a while. Can we just take a look at your dad's car? Like, it looks awesome. I just want to take a look at it. Something like that. And then he's opening the door. He's all, telling all about it. And you just see Ferris Bueller just keep walking. And then and he's like, no, what are you doing? So he was not even ready for Ferris Bueller to take the car.
Yep, yep. And I think subconsciously he wanted to take it out himself. He's probably been wanting to drive it and ride it for his whole life. Now he has somebody pressuring him, that peer pressure that's hard to say no to. It was his chance to finally cave in and say, okay, fine, you made me do it. And that's what he said. You made me do this, made me do that. No, you were the one who picked up the phone and called Mr. Rooney, and you're the one who allowed him to take the car. He needed somebody to blame, maybe in case things went wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yep.
yeah, okay. So my next lesson is that, and Ferris Bueller says this because I think Cameron says, "Hey, you're taking this too far," and Ferris Bueller turns to the camera and says, "A or one, you can never take things too far." I'm like, huh, that might be a good life lesson. You can never take something too far. And I'm looking back, well, it worked out for Ferris Bueller, so let me try it out. So everything that
Yep.
everything that I do, I try to take it as far as I can, not like deceiving people and being all that. But I just think, hey, you can never take it too far until it's too far. Then once it's too far, then you realize it. So you can never take anything too far. I don't know if that's a good life lesson, but something that I probably learned way back when I was younger, and that's where I'm at today.
Well, aggression wins in life. If you're playing on the football field, the team that's more aggressive beats up the other team as the one that's going to score more points or stop them from scoring. Aggression wins in poker, of course, when you're just calling bets. They're not going to fold to you, just hoping to win at the end. Like in general, aggression wins for sure. So I think that's a good life lesson right there. At least
Awesome.
one to put to the test, maybe not 100% of the time. You got to be judicious in your use of that aggression. But yeah, I agree with you there. Good lesson. My
Sweet.
third lesson is know your audience, right? When you're trying to teach people, you're trying to convince them something, you've got to speak in their language. And when you're a 60-year-old dude trying to teach high schoolers history, you've got to somehow make it fun, right? So those teachers were just totally screwing up. Their message wasn't getting by. Those people were just sitting there bored out of their mind, doing the least possible to pass the test to get out of school.
So out of all those kids, if you can remember back, all the different pictures of the kids doing what they were doing, like one was doodling, one was this, that were popping their gum, one was just looking bored, one was looking mean or upset or mad. Which one would you? Which one do you think you would be?
The guy drooling on his desk, but I would be drooling on myself right here, not with the head down. I'd be trying to hide the fact that I'm sleepy.
So I'm the same person. And literally it happened to me where it wasn't that. So there was, I specifically remember, I think it was biology. I was so bored. Lights were down or something. And so I put my head down and had my face, like just my forehead on the desk with my hands like this. And I just had my forehead on the desk like this. And I fell asleep. And then I woke up and I was literally, there was a puddle of drool on the ground because my mouth was open and my face was just straight down. And the guy sitting there, my table mate or whatever, said, "Dude, you're drooling." I'm like, "Oh, that was a good nap."
Yeah, totally worth it. Totally worth it.
So my next lesson or the last lesson is, well, I'll preface it. It's so tragic to see Cameron's parents and what the parents were doing to each other as well as to Cameron. Like literally horrible. So you see Cameron over and over again saying, "You love a car. You don't love your wife. You don't love your kid. You love a car. So never love any possessions. Possessions come and go. Like literally, Cameron destroyed your favorite possession. Now what do you have? You have nothing. So never love a possession. Love the people around you."
For sure. Love that life lesson. That's a perfect one to end this on. So let's see. Anything else that we failed to mention? Oh, kind of a tough one. No, not a tough one. It was actually really easy, but we'll probably choose the same thing. What is your prop from this movie?
Well, I mean, the only thing that's really, there are many things that are iconic, but I could absolutely think of the car. I mean, just the 1961 Ferrari California or whatever it was. That thing was beautiful. Even the replica. I'd take one of those replicas. That thing
For
is
sure.
amazing. If I had literally $10 million, I might buy one of those. Like I would probably, it might be really expensive, but I'm not a big car person, but that thing was beautiful.
I agree with you. That's my prop as well. Probably your grade is an A or an A plus. Mine's an A for sure.
A plus,
I
absolutely A
think A
plus.
plus as well, actually,
Yeah. What was
for me.
what we kind of touched on? So your favorite scene was the
Beating up the Ferrari and coming to the realization that it's time for him to stand up for himself and confront his father.
yeah. I don't know if I think that's probably close to my favorite scene. I also think of the opening, not necessarily monologue, but when he's like getting ready, getting dressed, calling up Cameron, saying, no, you're not dying, and all that sort of stuff. That's really fun for me. I really enjoyed that. But man, the entire movie was great. So it's absolutely an A plus for me.
Cool. Cool. I give it an A plus as well. So, Dust, let's see here. I think we've already kind of off air chosen our next movie, right? We're going to be doing Top Secret. Are you looking forward to it?
I am so looking forward to Top Secret. Let's do this. And Val Kilmer is amazing. So absolutely, let's do Top Secret.
For sure, man. And I already looked it up. I don't own the movie, so I'm gonna have to rent it on Amazon for $2.99. But no big deal. $3 to watch Top Secret. I haven't seen it for many years, but I imagine it's gonna hold up. I mean, it's probably gonna be just as funny in rewatching as Airplane, as Naked Gun, as Spaceballs is. You know.
And you have Val Kilmer. I mean, you can't really go wrong. I mean, other than you have, the Batman was kind of a little rough, but outside of that, Val Kilmer's. I mean, I eventually we need to do Tombstone. That's another movie, Val Kilmer movie. Well, you would just do a whole Val Kilmer series. Let's do Val Kilmer.
We could.
But
we could.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to Top Secret.
Yep, for sure. And then, of course, next, I guess you said Val Kilmer series. I guess we got to do Real Genius.
We should. Real Genius. That's a good
we
one.
should. We'll do that at some point for sure. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for those eyeballs. We appreciate them. And if you would like to let us know your own life lessons, your own Monday morning quarterback, the prop that you would take away, just go to the show notes page, watchandlearnpodcast.com/pod93 and leave a comment right there. All righty. Once again, my name was Sky.
And I'm Dusty.
And we will return next week with
Top Secret.